Let me ask you something simple but powerful. When was the last time you actually felt the magic of a holiday? Not just participated in it, not just showed up to the dinner or sent the obligatory texts, but truly felt it, the way you did when you were younger. The way your chest would fill with anticipation, the way traditions felt sacred, the way the whole world seemed to pause and acknowledge that this day was different. Now, fast forward to adulthood. The same holidays come and go, but they feel hollow. You go through the motions, you smile at the right moments, you say the right things. But inside, it just feels like any other day wearing a costume. You tell people you're not really into holidays anymore. You say they're overrated. You say it's just commercialism or family obligation. But is it really that simple? Because underneath that dismissal, underneath that casual indifference, there's often a story you're not telling. People who treat holidays like normal days aren't cold, ungrateful, or cynical. In fact, often they're the most sensitive ones. The ones who felt too much for too long and eventually had to protect themselves by feeling less. They're the ones who learned that expectations lead to disappointment, that traditions can break, and that the magic you once believed in doesn't always survive into adulthood. And so they stopped participating in the illusion. Not because they wanted to, but because it hurt less than hoping. Here's the thing about holidays. They're emotional amplifiers. They take whatever you're already feeling about your life, your relationships, your sense of belonging, and they magnify it. If you're surrounded by love and connection, holidays feel warm. But if you're lonely, if your family is fractured, if you've lost people who used to make these days meaningful, then holidays become mirrors, reflecting back everything you're missing. And for some people, it's easier to pretend the day doesn't matter than to sit with that reflection. When someone says, "I don't really do holidays," what they're often saying is, "I don't want to feel what this day makes me feel." But sometimes what they mean is, "I stopped believing anyone would make this day special for me, so I stopped trying." There's a difference between genuine indifference and self-protection, and holidays have a strange way of revealing which one you're living in. Some people genuinely grow out of holiday excitement, not out of loss, but out of perspective. They've realized that one day on the calendar doesn't define their joy, that love and gratitude aren't seasonal, that meaning doesn't need a specific date to exist. To them, treating a holiday like a normal day isn't rejection, it's liberation. They've learned that life itself is the celebration, not the designated days society tells them to perform happiness. But for others, the story is more painful. For them, holidays carry weight. Maybe they remind them of family members who are no longer here. Maybe they trigger memories of childhood Christmases or Thanksgivings, where everything looked perfect but felt wrong. Maybe they spent too many holidays alone, or with people who made them feel invisible. So instead of saying, "I wish this felt different," they say, "It doesn't matter anyway." It's armor disguised as apathy. And that's where the psychology gets fascinating, because it shows us how the mind protects itself. When we experience repeated disappointment around something that's supposed to be joyful, the brain starts to detach from it. You stop investing emotion. You stop building expectations. You teach yourself that this day is just like any other, because believing otherwise has hurt you too many times. And while that might sound sad, it's actually intelligent. The brain prioritizes emotional survival over fleeting happiness, when happiness has historically been unreliable. But here's the cost. Over time, that same protective detachment can numb you to moments that could have been meaningful. The heart that learned to stop hoping also stops noticing when something genuine appears. You start walking through holidays like a spectator, observing other people's joy but never quite feeling your own. Present in body, absent in spirit. Think about how many people smile through holiday dinners while internally counting the minutes until they can leave. How many people post the photos, say the words, perform the rituals, but feel absolutely nothing? We all do it, even the ones who claim they love holidays, because sometimes loving the idea of something is easier than admitting the reality disappoints you. Even pretending to care is a form of caring, just inverted, suppressed, hidden under layers of performance. There's a term for this: holiday ambivalence. It's when you simultaneously want the day to mean something and need it to mean nothing. You want to feel connected, but you're afraid of the vulnerability that connection requires. You want to believe in the magic, but you're too aware of the mechanics behind it. So you exist in this strange, in-between space, neither fully present nor fully absent, just going through the motions while your mind is somewhere else entirely. When you meet someone who treats holidays like normal days, don't assume they're heartless. Sometimes they've just made peace with the fact that these days will never be what they once were, or what they hoped they'd be. They've traded anticipation for control. But control has a cost. Because underneath the calm surface of "it's just another day" lies a truth most people don't want to admit. We all want to belong to something. We all want rituals that matter. We all want days that feel sacred. But when those things have been taken from us, or when we've never had them, pretending we don't need them feels safer than admitting we do. There's something deeply symbolic about holidays. They're not just about the specific tradition, they're about collective acknowledgement. They're society saying, on this day, we pause together. And for people who already feel disconnected from society, from family, from the world, holidays can intensify that isolation. Because everyone else seems to have somewhere to go, someone to be with, something to celebrate. And if you don't, if you're spending the holiday alone or with people you don't feel close to, the contrast becomes unbearable. So you convince yourself it's just a normal day. Because normal days don't come with the expectation of joy. And without expectation, there's no disappointment. For some, treating holidays like normal days is a way of managing grief. Maybe they lost someone who made holidays meaningful, a parent who cooked the meal, a sibling who made everything feel lighter, a partner who understood the significance. And now that person is gone, and the holiday is just a reminder of absence. So they work on Christmas, they skip Thanksgiving, they don't acknowledge New Year's. Not because they've moved on, but because participating would mean confronting the empty chair at the table. And some years, that's too much to bear. There's also something generational about this shift. Many people who treat holidays like normal days grew up in dysfunctional families where holidays were performative, not genuine. Where everyone smiled for the camera but fought behind closed doors. Where the pressure to appear happy was more important than actually being happy. And those people learned early that holidays are theatre, that the magic is manufactured, that the love is conditional. So they stop performing, they opt out, and they build lives where they don't need one day to validate their worth or their joy. But here's what happens beneath the surface. When you grow up being the one who always facilitates, who always plans, who always shows up for others, your mind internalizes a message. Your joy is secondary. You learn to prioritize everyone else's experience of the holiday. You become the one who cooks, who decorates, who makes sure everyone else feels taken care of. And over time, your own experience of the day becomes invisible. You're so busy creating the holiday for others that you never get to be in it. And eventually, you stop trying. Because what's the point of celebrating a day where you're the only one working? The truth is that discomfort with holiday celebration isn't laziness or negativity. It's exhaustion. Deep down, many people who treat holidays like normal days still wish they could feel what they once felt. But they've been let down too many times. They've spent too many holidays feeling lonely in crowded rooms. They've endured too many forced smiles and shallow conversations. So they protect themselves the only way they know how, by refusing to participate in the hope that this year will be different. They don't want attention or fanfare. They want authenticity. They want someone to notice that their indifference is actually sadness. They want someone to care enough to ask, "Are you really okay?" instead of accepting the surface level, "Yeah, I'm fine." Because that's the paradox of emotional self-reliance. The more you learn to be okay on your own, the harder it becomes to let anyone see when you're not. So birthdays, holidays, celebrations, they all become neutral zones. Places where vulnerability would normally surface, but instead gets buried under practicality. It's fine, you say. Let's just get through the day. But behind that calm exterior, the mind is processing a dozen emotions. Nostalgia for when holidays felt real. Sadness for the traditions that fell apart. Gratitude for surviving another year. And a quiet longing for simplicity, for the kind of magic that used to come without effort.
That's what makes this psychology so universal. Even if you think you've outgrown holidays, part of you still remembers what it felt like when they mattered. When the lights looked brighter, when the meals tasted better, when being together was enough. And somewhere in the back of your mind, you wonder if you'll ever feel that way again, or if you've changed too much, if the world has changed too much, if the magic was always just an illusion you were young enough to believe in. There's also a layer of existential reflection that comes with holidays as you age. They become markers of time passing. You look around the table and notice who's missing. You see how much everyone has changed. You feel the weight of years accumulating. And sometimes that awareness is uncomfortable, because holidays force you to confront how much life has moved forward, how different things are from what you imagined they'd be, how many plans didn't work out, how many people didn't stay. That's why for some people, holidays feel less like celebrations and more like reckoning. They highlight the gap between expectation and reality, between the life you thought you'd have and the life you're living. And rather than face that reflection, people prefer to downplay the day entirely. It's not apathy, it's self-preservation. It's the mind saying, "I need space to process where I am without the pressure of pretending I'm somewhere else." So, if you've ever felt disconnected from holidays, like you're supposed to feel something you don't, know that it's okay. You're not broken or ungrateful, you're just honest. You're aware that one day doesn't fix what's been accumulating all year. You're aware that forced joy isn't real joy. You're aware that celebration means something different now than it did when you were younger. Because holidays are never really about the day itself. They're about meaning. And the older we get, the more personal that meaning becomes. When you were a child, holidays were about the world celebrating with you. When you're an adult, it's about you deciding what's worth celebrating. It's less about tradition and more about truth. Less about who shows up and more about how much of yourself you're willing to show up with. That's the shift most people don't talk about. And yet it explains everything about why some people stop participating. Because maybe they've stopped trying to fit into traditions that don't fit them anymore. Maybe they're searching for new ways to mark time, new ways to find meaning, new ways to honor their own journey without needing everyone else's approval. But even in that search, there's an echo, a quiet voice that says, "I wish someone understood." That's the paradox of emotional evolution. You can be at peace with your choices and still feel the ache of disconnection. You can be grounded in your truth and still miss the simplicity of belonging. And that's human. That's real. Because treating holidays like normal days doesn't mean you're numb. It means you've learned that joy isn't something you schedule. It's something you cultivate in the everyday moments, in the morning coffee, in the sunset walk, in the conversation that actually goes somewhere. It's the softest kind of celebration, invisible but real, the kind that doesn't need a calendar date to validate it. But here's where it gets deeper. When someone treats holidays like normal days, they're not rejecting connection, they're redefining it. They're saying, "I no longer need external rituals to tell me when to feel grateful, when to feel love,
when to acknowledge what matters. And that shift from performative celebration to authentic living is one of the quietest forms of growth. Because somewhere along the way, we all learn that the things which once made us feel special, the decorations, the gatherings, the traditions, start to lose their meaning if they're not rooted in genuine connection. Not the decorations, not the meals, but the quiet recognition that you're still here, still trying, still becoming. And whether you mark the day or let it pass, you matter. You always did.